Welcome in another special episode of What's Right with Nick Wright, the podcast and YouTube shows. We continue our countdown of the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years in the NBA. And today's episode, I can't believe we're already here. We get to the top 10. Also on today's episode, as we do players 12, 11, and 10, we include the inspiration for this project, which I started years and years ago. He's actually the first one up. We'll get to him in just a moment. And all three of these guys have a claim that they were on the single greatest team in NBA history. In fact, I think the two greatest teams in NBA history were comprised of these three players, plus, obviously some others, one notable player who we just had in the rankings. But that will make sense when we are done. You're going to be like, really? The two greatest teams ever? We can discuss that maybe at the very end. But number 12, the inspiration for this project, you could argue the most underrated player in the history of professional basketball.
Number 12, Moses Malone.
So why is Moses Malone the inspiration for the project? It's because upon researching him, I was like, why is he not discussed as one of the greatest players ever? He's won 3 league MVPs. Full list of guys with more. Kareem, Michael, LeBron, Wilt, Russell. That's it. It's the same number of MVPs as Magic and Bird. He has 2 other top 4 MVP finishes, by the way. He was 4-time first-team All-NBA, 4-time second-team All-NBA, 2-time All-Defense, a 6-time rebounding champ, a career average of 20 and 12, and during his 8-year peak, where he won the 3 MVPs, over 8 seasons, he averaged 26 and 14 night in, night out. He has the most rebounds of the last 50 years, 3rd most rebounds all time, and he's top 10 all time in points. He's not remembered as fondly for reasons I can't quite figure out, and we'll talk about his amazing playoff success and some really good playoff success against one Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who might show up number 1 on this list when we finally get there. He was a trendsetter. He never played college ball, went right from high school to the ABA. But the reason I think he doesn't get the long-term respect is because at the end of his career, he bounced around the league so much. In fact, and before we get to the playoff stuff, true story about Moses Malone in relation to me. I was about 8 years old. So this is early 90s. Moses is still playing. And I'm in the back of my dad's car looking through my basketball cards because I used to have a giant collection of basketball cards. And I come across a Moses Malone, I think it was Atlanta Hawks card. And the way my dad tells the story is I just start crying. And he's like, what is wrong? And I said, I'm just worried. He's like, what are you worried about? I was like, I'm worried that when I make the NBA, I'm going to get traded all the time like this Moses Malone guy. That's true story. Little did I know that while Moses Malone was traded quite a bit, he was one of the greatest players in league history from the late 70s to the mid 80s. So let's go through the playoff stuff. And yes, at 8 years old, I did think I was going to make the NBA. I didn't really give up the ghost on that till about 11 years old. Okay, postseason accomplishments. 1-time champ, 2-time finalist, and a finals MVP. And that 1-time champ, I know it's one of the 2 best teams ever. The 83 Sixers and the 2017 Warriors are the 2 greatest teams ever. He was the finals MVP for that team. But let's start with 1975. He's 19 years old and averages 23 and 18 in the first playoff series of his life. He's 19, including a 30 and 30 game, a 30-point, 30 rebound game. 1977, he's to the NBA. He has a 31 and 26 in his first series ever against Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld. He averages 20 and 17 for the series. In round 2 against Dr. J, who would he eventually team up with, more on him in a moment, he has a 30 and 25 game. From 1979 until 1985, so that's a 6-season stretch, he averages 26 and 15 in the playoffs. 1979 first round exit, 1980, let's go. 37 and 20, to close out the Spurs in round one. He's swept by Boston in round two, a Celtics team that was an obviously excellent Celtics team. Didn't win the title, but a great Celtics team. Averages 25 and 11 against those Celtics in that series. 1981. And this is where he doesn't get his respect. They beat the defending champion Lakers. He averages 31 and 18 against Kareem. This is Kareem. You could argue, is he still at his peak? I don't know. He had just won league MVP a year prior. He averages 31 and 18, including a 38-point, 23-rebound game in game one. The next round, he beats the Spurs in 7 games. George Gervin go home, averaging 28 and 12, including a 41 and 15 in game three, and then beats the Kansas City Kings in the Western Conference Finals. How does he beat them? It's 2-2. What happens in games 5 and 6? He has a 42 and 23, followed by a 36 and 11 to get to the finals. He was the best player in those finals against Boston, but they lose to Boston in 6. He averages 22 and 16, leads the series, leads Bird, leads the series in points per game and rebounds per game. That's 1981. 1982, he loses in round one to Seattle despite averaging 24 and 17 and goes to Philly. So what happens in Philly? That's the faux year. Moses Malone predicted they would not lose a playoff game. They'd go faux. Instead, they went faux for the playoffs. 1983, first playoff game with Philadelphia. 38 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists. Averages 31 and 16 for his sweep against the Knicks. Then next round against Milwaukee, averages 22 and 14, and to make the finals, had a 28 and 17 to close them out. And then in the finals, again outplaying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with a championship on the line, outplays Kareem, averaging 26 and 18, leading the series in points and rebounds again. The next year, he's out in round one, but averages 21 and 14. 1985, back in the conference finals, loses to Boston, a great Celtics team, averaged 20 and 11 for the playoff that entire playoff run. 1987, he's with Washington now. You're playing the great Detroit Pistons. Isaiah Thomas had 31 and 16 in the only game that was close. They got swept. 1988, again, now you're old. Moses came into the league in 1975. It's now 1988. Playing Detroit again, averages 18 and 11 for the series. 1989, he's playing for the Hawks, averages 21 and 12 for the playoffs. So Moses Malone, top 10 all-time in points, top 3 all-time in rebounds. The only guys with more MVPs are LeBron, Michael, Kareem, Wilt, and Russell. Arguably the best player, or certainly the finals MVP, on arguably the best team ever. The 12th greatest player of the last 50 years, one Moses Malone. Now I'm excited for a caller who undoubtedly never watched a single Moses Malone game to tell me why I'm wrong. Let's see who it is.
And take that, Mike Florio. Oh, hello, Nick. Caught up with your latest ranking. Moses Malone. Moses Malone ahead of Giannis and KD. Wow. I'm all for schooling up the youngs. Nick, this one's a bit hard to claim. From what I can tell watching on YouTube, because that's the only place I've ever seen Moses Malone, he was great at offensive rebounding, but usually just cleaning up his own misses. I'm not sure that's actually greatness, but you have him ahead of 2 of the best players I've ever seen in my life. Guys who just scored instead of missing to get their own rebounds and score. I feel like you're reaching here. I feel like you're trying to, make a statement to the young people, and I feel like you missed. Moses Malone, way too high on this ranking.
Okay, Giannis or KD could pass Moses Malone. Giannis would have passed him if Giannis had gotten to the finals or won the title this year. KD maybe could have passed him if he had gotten to the finals or won the title this year instead of losing in round one. But the 3 MVPs has to matter. The longevity has to matter. The idea that he was just cleaning up his own misses, 50% from the field for his career, Gabe. Look that up, buddy. And so, no, he is the inspiration for this list. He was, let me say one more thing about Moses Malone. If you were to ask me, who were the greatest players in the league, the guy to hold the belt between basically the start of the league, we'll call it Russell's rookie year, because we're not talking Mike and Bob Pettit. From Russell's rookie year until right now, at most, 13 guys have held that title best player in the league. Moses is one of those guys. It was Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain going back and forth. Then it was Kareem for a decade. Who took it from Kareem? Bill Russell. Who took it from Bill Russell? I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Who took it from Kareem? Moses Malone. Who took it from Moses? Larry Bird. Then Magic. Then Michael. Then Akeem. Then Michael again. Then Shaq. Then Duncan. Then there's some arguments. Some would say after Duncan was Kobe. I would say after Duncan and LeBron, but let's give it to Kobe. Then Kobe, then LeBron, then Giannis. That's the full list of people to be the best player alive. Moses is on that list. He's the 12th best player of the last 50 years. We'll be right back with 10 and 11. Oh boy. These are fluid rankings as we sit here today. We'll do that next. All right, welcome back in. What's Right with Nick Wright, the podcast and YouTube show. Like, rate, subscribe, reviews. We continue our special editions of the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years. Today, we got into the top 12. Let's just keep it moving.
Number 11, Julius Erving.
So, Dr. J, what must be included is what he did in the ABA. He is 4-time first-team All-ABA, one-time second-team All-ABA, then goes to the NBA, 5-time first-team All-NBA, 2-time second-team All-NBA. So, NBA and ABAs combined, 9-time first-team, 3-time second-team. What about MVPs? He won the ABA MVP 3 times. He won NBA MVP once, and then was top 5 in MVP voting 5 other times. So think about what that means for Dr. J when we're discussing it. He had a decade where no matter what league he was in, he was either the best guy or a top 5 guy. His MVP award voting goes as follows from ABA to the NBA. Second, first, then comes to the NBA. 5th, 10th, second, first, third, 5th, 6th. So from 1972 to 1984, with one exception, his second year in the NBA, he's top 6 in MVP voting every single year. He wins 4 of them. He finishes second 2 other times. That's who he was. And it wasn't just that he was this great regular season player, where he's a 3-time ABA scoring champion. In the playoffs, he's unbelievable. So he's a 2-time ABA champion, 2-time ABA playoff MVP. And then when he came to the NBA, yes, he was a champion on the team we talked about, arguably the greatest team ever, the 83 Sixers. But he also made 3 other finals. So after dominating the ABA for his half decade playing there, he comes to the NBA, and his first 7 years in the NBA, he makes the finals 4 times. Wins a title, is the best player on 3 finalists. So let's go through it. 1972. And DeMonte sits here during these ranker shows, but doesn't chime in. The Dr. J stuff, DeMonte, is going to blow your mind. Because I know you've seen some of the highlights. 1972, he's 22 years old. His first playoff series ever. He averages 38 and 19. A 22-year-old in his first playoff series, how about I average 38 points, 19 rebounds, including a 53.14 rebound game. Round 2, he's playing Rick Barry in the ABA. Averages 31 and 21 in a 7-game series, but they lose in 7. 1973, he's 23 years old. He averages 30 and 9, but he loses in round 1. He does have a 40 and 10 game. 1974, he's 24 years old. He goes 12 and 2 in the playoffs en route to his first championship. To get to the finals, averages 30 and 9. In the finals, first finals game ever, he's 24 years old. So the same age Jason Tatum is right now. He has a 47 and 10 in his first finals game ever. For the finals, he averages 28 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal per game. That's Dr. J in the ABA at 24. 1975, they lose in round 1, despite the fact that he scores 30 4 separate times. 1976, to get back to the finals in a 7-game series, averages 32 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Game 1 of the finals, throws up a 45, 12, and 4. Game 2 of the finals, throws up a 48, 14, and 8. 4 of the finals, averages 38 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. He's now won 2 championships. So now in the ABA, he's won 3 MVPs, 2 titles, 2. They don't have finals MVPs in the ABA. They have just playoff MVPs, won that twice. So he's like, okay, maybe I should go over to the NBA, try my luck there. First playoff game ever in the NBA. 36 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists against the defending champion Celtics, who the Philadelphia 76ers, went and beat. 34-9-6 against Moses, who we just talked about, to get to the finals. First year in the NBA, in the finals. In the finals. Tied 2-2 against Bill Walton and that Blazers team. In game 5, 37 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. They lose by like 5. Game 6, facing elimination. 40 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. They lose by 2. But he gets dinged because they were up 2-0. They lost 4 straight. He averaged 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists for those finals. 1978, 1979, back-to-back first round, or where he can't get out of the East. He averages, in those 2 years, averages in the playoffs, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, including in probably the best moment of George Gervin's career, Game 7 where Gervin beat Dr. J. He scores at Dr. J at 34, 5, and 8 in the Game 7 loss to Gervin. 1980, he's back in the finals. Outplays Larry Bird, whose name we haven't heard yet on this list, in the Eastern Conference Finals, averaging 25, 8, and 4. Tied 2-2 in the finals against the 1980 Lakers. Kareem, Magic, that team, Norm Nixon if you want him. Dr. J has 36 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, but they lose. Kareem is too much in that game with 40 and 15. And then game 6 is the famous game. Kareem's out with an injury. Magic jumps center. Magic has one of the greatest games ever. And the Lakers win. So now he's been to the finals twice in the NBA, lost in both. 1981, playing that great Milwaukee team that we talked about earlier. Game 7 against Milwaukee, second round of the playoffs. Back then this was the first round, but it's to get to the conference finals. 28 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 blocks in a game 7 to get to the conference finals. Go up 3-1 on the Celtics. They blow the 3-1 lead. They lost games 5, 6, and 7 by 2 points, 2 points, 1 point. That Celtic team would go on to win the title. He'd have won that title. You cannot convince me otherwise. He wouldn't have won that title. They're up 3-1. They lose those 3 games by a combined 5 points. Instead, Bird goes on to win the title. 1982. Okay, let's just go back to the finals again, where Dr. J should be in the finals. He outplays Bird, in 1982, gets back to the finals against defending champion Boston. I believe he outplays Bird to get to the finals. 29 points in a game 7. 29 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks to beat the Celtics, the defending champs, to get back to the finals. In the finals, you're playing the Lakers again. And again, Kareem's too much. Magic's too much. But he averages 25 points, 8 rebounds. And in game 6, the final game of that series, 30 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 blocks. But they lose. 1983, they add Moses. Moses, who's had success against Kareem. They finally have some help. As we talked about earlier, they lose 1 game in the entire playoffs. They sweep the Lakers, who've been beating them. He averages for the finals 19 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks. That's Dr. J. So the idea that Dr. J is, one of the greats, but not one of the greatest, I reject it out of hand. You can't dismiss what he did in the ABA. And let's get to a Dr. J caller. I specifically requested we get Chris Broussard for Dr. J because he can discuss why the ABA stuff is really impressive. Let's listen to Broussard.
Love the love you giving the doctor, Dr. J. Julius Erving. A few years ago, Nick, I started saying that Dr. J has 3 titles instead of just 1. He won 1 in the NBA, but he won 2 in the ABA. And obviously, if he had 3 rings, people would hold him in even higher esteem than they already do. But here's why I value the ABA rings as much as the NBA rings. Because the ABA was just as good as the NBA. At least half of the best players in the world were in the ABA, half were in the NBA. And the 2 leagues used to play exhibition games. And the ABA won more than the NBA. They won 79 to 76 in total games. But then during the last 3 years of the league, they actually won about 66% of the games against the NBA. So if we value the NBA titles of that era, and we do, the Knicks won their 2 titles during that era. Jerry West won his 1 title during that era. Wilt's title, his 2nd title came during that era. We should value the ABA rings just as much as we do in the NBA rings. So it's good to see the doctor getting so much love. 3 rings for Dr. J.
That's exactly right. Bro, I couldn't say it any better. 9-time first team All ABA or NBA, 3 rings, 4 MVPs if you're counting the ABA MVPs. And now all of a sudden he has 9 times he was top 5 MVP, winning it 4 times, 5 other times he's been top 5. We went through the resume. It's not unimpeachable, but it is damn near bulletproof. There's Dr. J. Welcome back in. It is What's Right with Nick Wright. Special episode, special editions. And you might say, was that a special wardrobe change? So here's the deal. Spoiler alert for what's about to be revealed in about 30 seconds. The 10th greatest player of the last 50 years is Wardell Stephen Curry. What you are about to see, I recorded right before these finals started, the finals that Steph just won his 4th ring. So all of this information still applies. I'm going to let you guys see what we were saying about Steph right before these finals. Then I'm going to be back in this exact outfit talking momentarily about the finals that just happened, which cemented him ahead of Julius Erving and as the 10th best player of the last 50 years. But, I mean, he was top 12 even without this ring, as you're going to see from what he had already accomplished that we talked about last week, but you guys are seeing right now.
Number 10, Steph Curry.
So Steph Curry, 4-time first team All-NBA, 3-time second team All-NBA, 1-time third team All-NBA. Gotta be honest, before I looked it up, I would have thought he had more than 4 first team All-NBAs. I'm a little surprised. 4 is great, but as far as other guys on this list, it's a little less than you would expect. What about his MVPs? We know it. He's a 2-time MVP, including the first ever unanimous MVP in 2016, even though LeBron should have been unanimous in 2013. He got 99 of the 100 votes. I'm not still bitter. He has 2 other MVP top 5s. He's a 2-time scoring champion. He's a 1-time steals champion. He was the best player on the greatest regular season team ever. He is a 50-40-90 guy and damn near a 50-40-90 career guy. 47, 43, 91 for his career. So then with Steph, the question is playoffs. And the answer is he has been really good in the playoffs. But as of now, he's a 6-time finalist. And as of recording, he's a 3-time champion. He was the best player on 4 finals teams. He was the best player on 4 finals teams. You could argue 3 finals teams. What are you going to do with 2019? Who's you going to say is the best player? Durant was probably the best player during the season, but then he got hurt in the playoffs. He was the best player on 1 champion and the second best player on 2 other champions. Now, you might say, hold on, Nick. You have Steph ranked ahead of Durant. How are you saying that Durant was the best player? Because when they played together in those finals, Durant was the best. However, Steph, his totality of his body of work means he has had the better career. Let's talk about Steph's playoff stuff because I think it's misrepresented on both sides. I think folks that act like Steph has not been great in the playoffs are lying, and folks that act like actually Steph's been better in the finals than in the regular season, that's obviously a lie. Okay, 2013, first playoff series ever. He has a 30-13, and he has a 44-11 in double overtime against the Spurs to start round 2. I believe that was his greatest playoff game. That's unfair. It wasn't his greatest playoff game ever, but that was the welcome to superstardom Steph Curry moment when everyone had to take notice. 2014, they lose in 7 against the Clippers in round 1. He averages 23-8 for the series, including a 33.5 rebound, 9 assists, 3 steal game in game 7. So that's a game 7 against Chris Paul, Steph's second year in the playoffs, and he has a 33-5, 9-3 in game 7. 2015, sweep of Anthony Davis in New Orleans, averages 34-5-7, and had his second career 40-point playoff game. In round 2, He has a 32-10 to close out Memphis. You remember that series? That series, Memphis was up 2-1. That was actually a little bit of, a tumult for the Warriors. They figured it out in games 4, 5, and 6. Steph closed them out with 32-10. In the conference finals against Houston, averages 31 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. And then in those finals, what everybody remembers is Delly giving him trouble, LeBron's masterpieces in games 1, 2, and 3. What should not be forgotten is this. Game 4 of those finals, I believe to be Steph Curry's finest playoff moment. He had game 5, pardon me, not game 4. He had 37, 7, and 4 in the key game. Game 5 of those finals to go up 3-2 on Cleveland. Delly had since been to the hospital getting IVs. He was so tired from running around chasing Steph. That was a great team, but because Klay doesn't dribble, and Draymond was a better offensive player then than he is now, but everybody knew you had to stop Steph. He still dropped 37 to go up 3-2 on the Cavs in those finals. He did average in those finals 26 points per game. Now, I believe LeBron was MVP of those finals, but it is criminal that in the official NBA record books, Steph Curry got 0 finals MVP votes. It was 7 for Andre Iguodala, 4 for LeBron, 0 for Steph. If you weren't going to vote for LeBron, not voting for Steph there is crazy, especially how he finished it. Okay, so now they're the champions. Then in 2016, he is as good of a regular season as any player's ever had. His team wins 73 games. He wins the scoring title. He wins a unanimous MVP. He then gets hurt right before the playoffs, right at the beginning of the playoffs, comes back and has 40 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, including a record that I don't know if will ever be broken. 17 points in overtime. He had a 17-point overtime period in his first game back against Dame and CJ in Portland. That was the famous I'm back game. It was kind of a little weird because then after that, Warriors fans were like, oh, Steph's hurt when he didn't play great in the finals, but he had 17 in overtime. Then, this is key. One of the reasons he's ahead of Durant in these rankings. They're down 3-1 to OKC. Games 5, 6, and 7, he averages 33, 7, and 8, including in Game 7, another huge Game 7, 36 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. Then, the first 4 against Cleveland, he plays well. He plays unbelievably in Game 4, 38 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists to go up 3-1 on the Cavs. But then we know what happened. LeBron and Kyrie had dual masterpieces in Game 5. LeBron had a singular masterpiece in Game 6. And then Steph had the worst playoff game of his life in Game 7. He had listen, that's got to be part of the story. He was, I think, 6 for 19. I can pull it up real quick. I think it was 6 for 19. We all remember the behind the back pass out of bounds. Earlier in the series, his wife accuses the league of being rigged for ratings or money. He throws his mouthpiece at a fan. The whole thing's ugly. So that was tough for him. But then, to his credit, he recognizes the Warriors can't beat LeBron as presently constituted. Not a healthy Cavs team. He gets Kevin Durant to come join him. And then they have, you could argue, I said it earlier, the 2 greatest teams ever, the 83 Sixers and the 2017 Warriors. Why? They were both championship caliber teams that had been to multiple finals and then added an in their prime league MVP. The Sixers added Moses. The Warriors added Durant. If people are like, oh, how good were the 96 Bulls? Well, what if the 97 Bulls added Akeem Olajuwon? Then they'd be the greatest team ever. That's essentially what the Warriors did. They only did that because Steph allowed them to do it. 2017, they're just sweeping their way through the playoffs, it looks like. And to close out Portland, Steph has 37, 7, and 8. Averages 35 and 7 for the series. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals has another 40-piece. Averages 32, 6, and 5 for the series as they swept the entire West. Averages 27, 8, and 9 in the finals. So that's important. Those were probably Steph's best finals. He averaged 27, 8, and 9. The problem is Durant averaged like 35. So it was clear Durant was finals MVP. For the playoff run, he averaged 28, 6, and 7. 2018 Western Conference Finals. This is key. These are, again, clutch moments facing adversity. They're down 3-2 to Houston. He has 29, 5, and 6. And then in game 7, 27 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, 4 steals to get to his 4th straight finals. Could have been the finals MVP at 37 in the final game of those finals and averaged 28, 6, and 7 for the finals. But KD got it mostly because he hit that big shot over LeBron for the 2nd straight year. 2019, he has a 38, 15, and 7. 15 rebounds. Steph, underrated rebounder for his size. 38, 15, and 7 to start the playoffs, and then an iconic game against Houston. Durant's already gone down. If you just look at the box score, you say, oh, game 6 against Houston, Steph had 33 points. He had 0 in the first half, and he had 33 in the second half to beat James Harden, send them home, beat them in Houston. Swept Portland without Durant in the conference finals, averaging 37, 8, and 7. Game 3 of the 2019 finals, tied 1 game apiece. Durant's not back yet. Steph had 47, 8, and 7, but the Warriors lost by double digits in that game. Averaged 31, 5, and 6. Not on great efficiency, but still 31, 5, and 6 for the finals. They obviously, lose in 6. Durant comes back. What also hurt Steph there is they had 2 wins there. One of the 2 was when Durant came back, had 11 points in a quarter, and then popped his Achilles. But at that point, he has 5 finals. He has 3 rings. Then he misses the playoffs back-to-back years. And now this year he's back in the finals. So that's why he is where he is. Without question, one of the 12 greatest players of the last 50 years, one Stephen Curry. Let's get to a Steph Curry caller or callers if we can, please.
What's up, Nick? How you doing? Melissa Rowland here, national NBA reporter for Fox Sports. I have a question for you. Steph Curry obviously completely changed the game. He revolutionized the sport. He made it possible for players to shoot from anywhere on the court. He made it so that NBA teams had to change their rosters. He made it so that players had to change their games. Did you consider putting him higher on your list just for the mere fact that Steph Curry changed NBA basketball as we know it?
Hey Nick, it's Pablo, host of ESPN Daily, Debatable, from Around the Horn, PTI, all that stuff. I'm just here to automatically reject wherever you rank Steph Curry. And I truly mean automatically, because asking you to rank Steph is kind of like asking Kanye to assess where Pete Davidson ranks on a list of all-time funniest comedians. And I don't mean to compare Pete Davidson and Steph at all. One guy affected the way millions upon millions of people approach and conceive of the game of basketball. He's the greatest shooter of all time, blah, 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 blah. Although Pete Davidson also pretty good shoot-your-shotter, as it were. But simply because he's taken away so much of what you love, right? Like whether it's your credibility via the Andrew Wiggins stuff or all the titles that you wanted for LeBron, it's just impossible for you to assess him. And so for that reason, I am out.
Okay, well, I appreciate Pablo, I think, not even looking at where I have Steph ranked before saying that he would have him ranked higher. I would just challenge anyone to, again, I don't want to reveal the rest of the list, but you guys know that 9 names, 10 names that haven't been discussed yet. We haven't, you got him ahead of Shaq? Do you have him ahead of Larry Bird? Do you have him ahead of Kobe Bryant, Akeem Olajuwon, the guys who are going to be coming up in future episodes? Do you? I don't think you do. And as far as, do I give Steph extra legacy credit for how he changed the game? I do not. If we're ranking the greatest baseball players ever, how do you fit? Do you have Jackie Robinson number 1? Maybe the most important athlete ever, but it's not better than Babe Ruth. Those are separate discussions. In a similar way, yes, Steph Curry changed the game, but that to me, if I'm talking about how impactful you were, how great you were, I can't give you legacy points on that. I think I have him ranked quite fairly. I reject nearly everything Pablo said, except for the long list of jobs he currently has that he does, at a halfway decent level. We'll be right back. All right, and now I'm back to the day after Steph Curry won his 4th title to talk about these finals, because we weren't able to talk about it during the bulk of that Steph Curry segment because we recorded it right when the finals started. So Steph going into these finals was right neck and neck with Dr. J for 11 or 10. And what pushed him over the top was the 2 kind of odd omissions from his resume. He got them both accomplished. One, obviously, a clear, concise, conclusive, no doubt about it, finals MVP. I know some people argue, and I'm one of them, he deserved it over Iguodala in 15. But some of us who argue that think that was really a fight for second place because LeBron should have won it. There hadn't yet been a finals in his career where he was unquestionably the best guy on either team. This finals, there is no doubt about it. Additionally, he also hadn't yet had the transcendent, all-time memorable finals game. He had some very good finals games, but the most points he ever had scored in a finals game came in a loss, as we discussed. The 37 against Cleveland in Game 5 in 2015 is a great game, but I don't know how many people really remember it. People are going to remember Game 4. Down 2-1 against Boston, who had seemingly taken control of the series. He has 43 points, 10 rebounds, an out-of-this-world shooting experience to quiet TD Garden to get the Warriors back in control of the series. And then while he wasn't great in Game 5, Game 6, he was sensational again, 34, 7, and 7, rebounding from the first playoff game of his life where he didn't hit a three by making 5 of his first 6 threes, hitting 6th overall, winning a unanimous finals MVP. So 4 rings and the architect and the heartbeat of the best dynasty since Jordan's Bulls. This ring cements the Warriors, in my opinion. 6 trips to the finals in 8 years, 4 rings in 8 years, better than the Spurs dynasty. The Spurs won 5 rings, went to 6 finals, but they did it from 99 to 14, so over 15 years. Better than the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, who went to 4 finals, won 3 rings in a 5-year stretch. This is better than that. So he's the architect of the best dynasty of his era. He has 4 rings. He has 2 league MVPs, as we discussed. He's the greatest shooter ever. He's one of the greatest teammates ever. And now, finally, his resume has no blank marks. He's checked off every box you would want to check as a player. It's why he is in the top 10 of the 50 best players of the last 50 years. Next week, we will get to players 8 and 9, a couple of big men, and the order and who they are might surprise you. Hey, thanks for watching. Smash or just lightly tap that subscribe button. It all works the same. To get more from the show, and make sure you click. Why don't you want to mash the bell too, guys? Or just, lightly tap the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just hit the link in the description below.